First of all, a little apology. It's interesting that only people who have heard me give a presentation in Portuguese previously have returned today. So they obviously found it so much fun that they wanted some more. In fact, I did have a fluent Portuguese speaker lined up, but unfortunately, they couldn't come this afternoon. So you've got me. Yeah. This is on? We got sound okay, recording? Good. If you can't hear this, then you can study it afterwards because it will go live on the web with hundreds and thousands of viewings. Cordial bem-vindo ao lançamento mundial o meu mais recente livro. A very warm welcome to the global launch of my latest book, Desvendando, os segredos do Portugal. Influências, históricas que forjam a rica tapeçaria da cultura portuguesa. Unveiling the secrets of Portugal. The historical influences forging the rich tapestry of Portuguese culture. I believe all immigrants into Portugal benefit from understanding Portuguese heritage. Acredito que todos os imigrantes em Portugal beneficiam da compreensão da herança portuguesa. This book will help. It is concise and informative. Este livro será útil. É conciso e informativo. It's easy to follow and it's fully bilingual. É fácil de seguir e totalmente bilingue. Now, foreign influences on people living in the lands which became Portugal started at least 3,000 years ago with Phoenician traders. A influência estrangeira sobre os povos que viviam nas terras que viriam a ser Portugal começou há pelo menos 3,000 anos como os comerciantes Phoenicians. Nobody's laughing, it's amazing. Later came many centuries of occupation by Romans, Visigoths, and the Moors. Posteriormente, vieram muitos séculos de ocupação por romanos, visigodos e mouros. The Romans established language, jurisprudence, and the road network. Os romanos estabeleceram a língua, a jurisprudência e a rede de estradas. The Moors brought many skills, low rainfall cultivation, and many new crops, new cuisine, new architecture, new design, and scientific knowledge. Os Moros trouxeram muitos novos habilidades, cultivou em zonas de baixa pluviosidade e muitas culturas novas, nova cozinha, nova arquitetura, novo desenho artístico e conhecimento científico. Then came outward exploration, backed by the knowledge and the seafaring skills of the local chapters of the Templars, who, in a stroke of genius, had been nationalized by King Dinis in 1319. Starting with the capture of Quetta in 1415, a global network of trading posts was built, which reached Japan in 1542. Em seguida, veio a exploração marítima, apoiada pelo conhecimento e pelas habilidades habilidades náuticas das secções locais dos templários, que, num golpe de gênio, tinha sido nacionalizada pelo rei Dom Dinis no ano 1319. A partir da captura de Ceuta no ano 1415, foi construída uma rede global de entrepostos comerciais que chegou ao Japão no ano 1542. Unfortunately, the curse of slavery persisted throughout Iberia, continuing under Roman, Visigoth, and Moorish overlordship, and even survived the Black Death in 1348. Surprisingly, slavery was then granted a papal blessing by Pope Martin V in 1425. The only restriction being the sale of Christian slaves to non-Christians. Infelizmente, a maldição da escravatura persistiu por toda a Península Ibérica, continuado sob o domínio romano, visigodo e moro, e até sobreviveu a peste negra no ano 1348. Surpreendentemente, a escravatura recebeu a benção papal do Papa Martinho V, no ano 1425. A única restrição era a venda de escravos cristãos a não cristãos. Henry the Navigator gave 10 slaves to the Pope to obtain another papal bull, which granted Portugal ownership of any land conquered from the Moors in Africa. Truly, that was the art of the deal. Henrique, a navegador, entregou des escravos ao Papa para obter outra bula papal que concedesse a Portugal a posse de qualquer terras conquistadas aos moros em África. Verdadeiramente, a arte da negociação. Throughout the period of the monarchy, the church had huge influence. When Portugal declared itself an independent kingdom in 1139, it took 40 years to gain recognition from the Vatican. Ao longo do período da monarquia, a Igreja teve uma enorme influência. Quando Portugal declarou reino independente no ano 1139, foram necessários 40 anos para obter o reconhecimento do Vaticano. But in 1219, King Afonso II was excommunicated. Worse than declaring war, the king was committed to eternal damnation. Next, Portugal was placed under interdict. There was to be no confessions, no mass, no weddings, no church bells anywhere in Portugal. The row continued, with the next two kings also excommunicated. It's a miracle Portugal survived as independent. Mas em 1219, o rei Afonso II foi excomungado. Pior do que declarar guerra, não confissões, não missas, Now casamentos en nenheim sino de igreja é permitido em Portugal. A série de acontecimentos continuou, como os dois reis seguintes também excomunicados. Foi um milagre que Portugal tenha sobrevivido como independente. The power of the church continued to grow. By 1810, it was estimated that 10% of the entire population comprised ordained priests and nuns. Thus, the laws enacted after the revolution in 1910 were mostly anti-clerical. O poder da igreja continuou a crescer. No ano 1810, estimava-se que 10% da população era constituída por padres e freiras ordenados. Assim, as leis promulgadas após a Revolução, no ano 1910, foram, na sua maioria, anti-clericais. Today, Portugal is a thriving liberal democracy. The global financial crisis left Portugal with national debt equal to 134% of GDP. But good policies, followed by all politicians, have successfully reduced our national debt to 89% at the end of last year. For comparison, United Kingdom is now 94%. Hoje, Portugal é uma democracia liberal próspera. A crise financeira mundial deixou Portugal com uma dívida nacional equivalente a 134% do PIB. Mas boas políticas implementadas por todos os políticos conseguiram reduzir a nossa dívida nacional para 89% no final do ano passado. Em comparação, o Reino Unido está agora em 94%. No entanto, a taxa líquida de natalidade feminina em Portugal desceu tanto que o crescimento econômico depende agora da imigração. É por isso que precisamos deste livro. However, the net female reproduction rate in Portugal has now fallen so low that economic growth is now 100% dependent upon immigrants. That's why we need this book. Obrigado. Muito obrigado. I hope some of that was intelligible to those who speak fluent Portuguese.
Of course.
That's my friend. Well,
in your book, do you differentiate between Portugal today and several hundred years ago?
It starts before the Celts and before the Phoenicians got here, right back to day one. There's a few little tribes that were here before those two, but they left very little remains.
You touch into why Portugal still is Portugal? I mean, we could have been occupied many times.
It is very surprising. In fact, one of the most interesting things during the period of the monarchy, because that's when obviously you had Spain coalesce into one country and Portugal managed to retain itself. The reason I think it kept itself separate, despite the religious attacks, I mean, they bent over backwards to give the church power. It took them 40 years to get the Pope to recognize them. Without that, anyone could wander in here and just take the country, say, okay, it's not recognized by God, so I can have it. So the monarchy was always giving rights and privileges to the church, and it got to quite ridiculous levels. The most significant thing they achieved was the division of the world between the Portuguese and the Spanish stroke Habsburgs. I mean, the Habsburgs were the global power in Europe, controlled probably half of Europe. But plucky little Portugal managed to out-negotiate them at the Vatican. So there was two global treaties, treaties with global effect, whereby, first of all, the Atlantic was split between Portugal and the Habsburgs, and then later, the other side, the two treaties of Tordesillas and I can't quite remember the other one, but for the second one, Spain was arguing, well, we should go round the circuit of the globe, keep the same latitude sort of thing, right the way around. And the Portuguese out-negotiated them and got another 12% or so because they wanted the Philippines and the Spice Islands. And amazingly, the Habsburgs agreed because they were desperate for money, and the Portuguese gave them some gold. What's less well known is that whilst we all learned, well, many of us learned in school about the Spanish conquistadors taking vast quantities of gold out of the Spanish colonies in the Pacific side of South America, the Brazilians got, the Portuguese got it from Brazil sooner and in huge quantities. So they suffered the same fate. Centuries of inflation and economic depression, like the Dutch did with the gas. Too much wealth is not good for you. You should give it away. All right. Any more? It's great to have some questions. Hi.
During the time, Portugal has been excommunicated for a long time because they said it was below 3 consecutive kings.
3 consecutive kings, yeah.
What they did was they organized a national church or something like this to replace the role of the church, which was no more.
Well, I didn't see any reference to any attempt at competition, unlike, say, the UK under Henry. But then Henry didn't want to set up his own church. He just wanted to be head of the church. But in Portugal, I think the surprising thing, as you say, 3 consecutive monarchs were excommunicated. In those days, that's an invitation to your nobles to rise up and kick you out. So they did it to the first one, and then they excommunicated the second one, and so on. But I'd never even heard about the penalty of interdict. That's the ultimate nuclear weapon of the Catholic Church. You place a whole country under interdict. Nobody can be forgiven. There's no mass, no confessions, no weddings. And it was like that for a decade or two. Incredible. Peter.
You said about 1810. We all probably here know of 1974. What actually happened in 1810?
1810 was just the date that there was some government census here, because obviously if you've got too many people ordained and too much land owned by the church had already been granted freedom from taxation. So it meant that they were living quite well and they didn't have to pay any tax. So it was the government, Ministry of Finance, whatever they had in those days, was concerned about the numbers. And that's how that data came out.
What prompted that?
Well, it was prompted, well, I think the number that were ordained was very much central to people's lives, the belief. And if you thought about it, the life was not too bad if you lived with a bunch of brothers or sisters. It was a communal life. You didn't get conscripted to go off and fight wars in places and die. You didn't have to pay tax. You were more or less looked after. You had to spend a lot of time praying, but you had a pretty good life.
Sorry, this is unlike the idea of one son goes to the ministry and the second son goes into the army. So that wasn't a principle.
I haven't come across that as a principle in Portugal, no. That was very much an English. Yeah, I think French too. French people here might know.
You have two French here?
Anyone familiar with that?
Well,
part. One part goes to the religious and the other part to the law.
Right. Okay. Well, we've still got some wine back there, if anyone would like to top up. And if anyone would like a book, please come forward. There's also lots of other leaflets and things here. There's leaflets for friends. And there's some stuff on... I've also, I think many of you will know, I've also developed a YouTube channel in conjunction with my film director, Manuel, sitting here front in the middle. I think a number of you may have watched some of those. So there's a leaflet here which gives you the titles of the first 25 or something, and some other bits and pieces also on the other books that are published, which are more of a series. None of the rest are bilingual. So, cheers. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. I was looking for a sign one. Yeah. Got the, you do, Dan. There you go.